segment, a lunchtime live with Dave. I hope that you're doing well. We're going to get into this breaking news about a potential increase in sudden blindness with Wegovy and Ozempic. But before we do, hit that like, hit that bell, hit that sub. Make sure you get notifications for all the videos that we do here. This is sort of a take two. I was doing more of these lunchtime lives from the treadmill here at Planet Fitness, and what I've come to learn very quickly is that the connection for the Wi-Fi is no good, and not very good connection on the cellular side as well. So hopefully I'm coming in loud and clear, and we'll get into this news right away. So essentially what we saw today was they call them phase 4 studies or real world studies. Essentially, this is an aftermarket, a post-marketing study. So now that the drug has been on the market for some time, they're able to basically go into patient records and sort of kind of follow up and see, data that may be pertinent to, these medications once they sort of hit the market. And this was one such study, and it comes from the Massachusetts Eye and Ear Health Institute, which is associated with the Harvard Health System. And essentially they had about 16,000 patients there. And they started a study where they looked at about 710 diabetic patients and 979 people with obesity, so without diabetes. Now, blindness is an increased risk in diabetics. This is a known fact, right? So this was looking at 710 diabetics and 979 non-diabetics, and they were looking at a specific condition that essentially what this condition does is it's a blockage or a reduced blood flow to the optic nerve in the eye. And the name for this one here is NAION, and I said that backward, NAION. And I couldn't even begin to tell you what the acronym stands for, but it deals with the optic nerve and the blood supply to it. And essentially what can happen is that blood supply can get shut off and the optic nerve fails, right? And so essentially you go into basically blindness, which is sort of a scary thing. Here's the rub with the GLP-1. So looking at the population with diabetes and the other subset, which was overweight, and I didn't get a breakdown of what the percentage was per group that they looked at. But basically what they found is that the people that were diabetic or overweight on GLP-1s in this subset of the patient population they were looking at had an 8 times greater risk of developing this condition, which causes sudden blindness. Again, blindness is associated with diabetes, but in the study they were looking at 710 diabetics and 979 people with obesity, and found that there was a much greater, an 8 times greater increase for those people to develop this condition. So it is a statistically significant number of people within a subset of the population who are developing this. Novo Nordisk, of course, came out very quickly and said, we don't see this as being associated. We did not see this in clinical trials. And I think that this is definitely something, of course, that they want to be out in front of and on top of. But I think this is an interesting thing to watch, and I think this will be an interesting one, and I hope that they take a closer look at, because these medications have been shown to be very safe. And there aren't a whole lot of stories out there about adverse reactions to this class of medications, but this is one of those stories, and I definitely want to bring you the news, the good, bad, and the ugly for those taking these. And it does seem that based upon this study, there could be a signal that they want to look further at. So of course the FDA will take a look at this. The FDA will probably determine whether there needs to be a broader study done on this. Again, it seemed like from everything that I read, it sounded like this was looking at semaglutide specifically, semaglutide being a GLP-1 agonist, a GLP-1 analog, so it mimics GLP-1, right, that your body produces naturally in response to nutrient uptake. We don't know whether this you know, would broaden out to the entire class of medications. Of course, MOUNJARO and Zepbound are first and foremost a GIP receptor agonist, still an incretin hormone, very similar to GLP-1, and it does have a GLP-1 component, but it is a 5 times stronger GIP agonist than it is a GLP-1. So whether this would extrapolate out to that medication, there aren't answers for that at this point, but I think that it will be an interesting one to follow. Now, is this reason to panic? Is this reason to get off the medication? No, this is a signal to be aware of, and this is definitely something that you want to talk to your doctor about if you have concerns potentially about this, especially if you have noticed anything funny happening with your vision or anything like that. Because the interesting thing is that this was breaking news today in several articles online, but what I found to be the most interesting is I didn't see it in my breaking news feed first. Where I saw it first was on our Facebook group, Zepbound for Weight Loss, and within that group there's actually a person who is in the group who was at the doctor experiencing this very symptom. And so she said, here I am at the doctor, I'm experiencing this, and here's an article about this just today. And so this, you know, this could be something to potentially discuss with your doctor. And so I hope that you will, if you're having any of those issues. I'm not trying to scare anybody or have anybody sort of deterred from using these medications, because you always have to weigh the potential side effects or anything that happens with these medications against what it means to not treat the chronic disease of obesity, or in some cases diabetes, like it is with myself. So I wanted to share the news. I want to share the good, bad, and the ugly with you always. I know that you come to depend on that from me, and so I hope that you all will take that for what it's worth. Just another point of data that we can all use to make better, more informed decisions with our doctors so that we can get the best level of care as humanly possible. Would you hit that like, hit that bell, hit that sub before we go today? Thanks for hanging out with me for a little bit. Apologize if you were on the stream earlier where we got interrupted with the internet. So that is just a point of data for me to know in the future when we go live from the treadmill. But thanks for being here. Thanks for being the best part of what we do here at On the Pen. Make sure you hit that like button before we go, and we'll catch you on the next one.